Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
And I'm Office Bloke Mike.
Here we are, three of us together, which means a topical video. Is it time for Europe to ditch America?
Oh dear.
Oh. See with the comments, I'm not going to read
Do
them.
you know when I look at like I say, I never really sort of discuss politics with people because
No.
you can have very different opinions and sometimes
Yeah.
you can create arguments and stuff like that. I'm not into it. I'm not
More than
I'm not
most.
asked.
Yeah,
I'm really
exactly.
not asked when it comes to it. Like if someone says to me, "You don't know what it's like," I'm like, "Mate, I know what it's like. I've lived in America.
Yeah.
I've lived in foreign countries. I've been a migrant. I've been everything you can think of." Right? Where you put it to people and go, "You know what it's like to go to a foreign country where they don't speak your language," and I go, "I do.
Yeah.
I've done that. I've done it twice. You
Yeah.
know, it's with different countries.
Yeah.
So you know what it's like. But I look at leadership in Europe and the lack of it, and I think we haven't really got a ballsy leader.
Yeah. True.
No one in Europe. The only one that comes to mind is the one from Italy.
Yeah.
Is her name Maloney?
I'm not sure who it is, to be honest.
It's the girl.
Yeah, I
it's
don't
female.
know her.
She's the only one that shows a little bit of balls.
Is she the... Oh, no, there's someone else that's in there. I think that's like Mussolini's great-granddaughter. I think she's
I don't know.
in there.
I don't know.
Obviously don't
But
know.
you know, when I look at people like Macron and people like that, I just think,
Is that in there?
yeah, that's him, yeah.
Frenchy.
I just
It
think
is,
that that's
yeah,
one of
yeah.
them. But I hope Europe doesn't ditch. I'm hoping America offers British asylum. I'll be on the first plane out.
Well, that's
I'll
what
be
I
like,
mean.
yeah, I'll take that.
See, Aiden's all right.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah,
Well, he's
see you
at
later,
that
mate.
level now of sponsorship, and it's we're talking about when we retire, moving to the USA because I think it's got more of a I think it's got more opportunity than what Europe has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But this
Plus,
is
you know the place.
Yeah, exactly. And this is it time for Europe to ditch America? Let's see what this is about.
For most of modern history, Europe, or at least Western Europe, and the United States have been best mates. The two are connected by cultural, economic, and military ties, most obviously manifest in NATO, and despite the occasional hiccup, have moved in ideological lockstep for much of the past few decades. However, in the past few years or so, the transatlantic relationship has come under unprecedented strain, and things only look likely to get more difficult as Trump sets up what looks sure to be an antagonistic second term. So in this video, we're going to look at some of the various points of tension straining this relationship, and whether Europe and America could really fall out for good. Who's the best politician right now? Hear our thoughts and argue with us on our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard. Find it on the TLDR Podcast YouTube channel or in your favorite podcast app. So as we see it, there are both short-term, Trump-related pressures on the transatlantic relationship and long-term, more structural pressures that won't go away even if Trump is succeeded by a more traditional Democrat in 2028. Let's start with those short-term Trump-related pressures though. The first one, and the one that's most in the news at the moment, is Trump's interest in Greenland and his apparent
They go to polls today, I think. Greenland.
Oh, really?
Really? I thought it was already... Is it the parties had gone against it?
It's no, they're going
it's
to the
public.
polls. They're going to polls today. I'm not sure if it's just like their local elections to put everything.
Is it a public vote?
Right.
Yeah, but it's they're a part of Denmark. They're owned by Denmark.
Yeah.
So they come under the Denmark rule. But I know there's something like I think it's 57,000 people that live there, of which only 40,000 can vote because they're like
Right.
I think they're Inuit, indigenous Inuits.
That's sparse. Like, that's so little people there.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's the biggest island in the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's it's massive and it plays a big part in what it is. And it's I think whether it is for sale. I don't know. I don't know what the people want. I've not really sort of like followed. I've not really followed the trajectory of what they want. If you know what I mean. Since Trump's sort of like been saying that they'll buy Greenland or they'll take Greenland. Obviously, it'll be a purchase.
Well,
Yeah.
even from like a
Denmark.
defence point of view, mate. Imagine having that as well. Just like a...
When you
That's
look
a
at- when you look
huge
at-
part of it,
when
isn't
you
it?
look at-
The strategic point where it is in the world, you know.
I think with the ice caps melting as well, I think a lot of like natural resources have become available in that country.
bet.
Maybe,
or
yeah.
accessible.
It's a great shout, yeah. Very,
Yeah.
very
More
memorable.
sort of achievable, accessible. But when you look at it from the North Pole, so like looking down on it, like, and you see what sort of a strategic part it
Yeah.
plays.
Well, again, with the whole
But it
kind
is,
of
yeah.
51st state thing, if that
Yeah.
becomes a part of it, I don't know what if the discourse or people are up for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mate,
yeah. But
that-
I know they're going to the polls today for something, but I think there's only 40,000 people that can vote in the whole country.
That's crazy,
on
man.
the
Okay.
whole island.
disdain for internationally recognized borders more generally. For anyone who somehow missed this, earlier in the week, Trump reiterated his intention to buy Greenland from Denmark. And then on Tuesday, he gave a press conference where he refused to rule out using military force to take the territory, arguing that the United States needed Greenland for, quote, economic security and national security reasons. Unsurprisingly, this ruffled some diplomatic feathers in Europe. On Wednesday morning, France's foreign minister basically said that the EU would defend Greenland if the United States tried to invade. But even if Trump doesn't invade Greenland, his apparent disdain for internationally recognized borders, as evidenced by his other comments on Canada and Panama, as well as reoccurring reports that he's planning to invade northern Mexico without the Mexican government's approval, will strain the transatlantic relationship. European politicians and governments are generally a bit more concerned about international law than their American counterparts, and especially their Republican counterparts. This isn't us Brits taking a jab at the US, by the way. It's just true that the US is more in the habit of breaking international law or going against the international consensus than Europe, as evidenced by the plethora of UN treaties that the US has refused to sign or ratify. As such, Europe will be especially keen to protect international norms, particularly when it comes to states' territorial integrity, because they've spent the past few years accusing Russia of breaking international law by violating Ukraine's internationally recognized borders. If they stand by while Trump either threatens to or actually does violate territorial integrity of smaller states like Canada, Panama, and Mexico, it will undermine their argument against Russia, and they'll be seen as hypocrites by the international community. The second Trump-related pressure on the transatlantic relationship is Elon Musk. Musk is a close ally of Trump's and has emerged as a vocal supporter of right-wing, anti-establishment politicians across Europe, including Tommy Robinson in the UK, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, and the AfD in Germany. Unsurprisingly, this hasn't endeared him to the more established figures in Europe, who are also worried about Musk's influence on European political discourse via X, which Musk has started using to amplify certain issues, sometimes via disinformation. If European politicians do decide to take action against Musk, which seems increasingly likely at this point, it will doubtless cause some friction with the Trump administration, given that Trump has basically endorsed Musk's meddling. The third and final Trump-related pressure is Ukraine. Now, we've done a whole video on Trump's plan for Ukraine before, but the TLDR is that while there is some ambiguity here, Trump has signaled his intention to wind down American support for Ukraine, which has provoked some anxiety in Europe, where there's a pretty broad pro-Ukraine consensus at the moment. Anyway, those are the three big Trump-related pressures on the transatlantic relationship. But a myopic focus on Trump obscures the fact that US-EU relations have been under strain for a while now, thanks to some deeper structural factors. The first of these is China. China is actually a rare point of bipartisan agreement within the United States. Biden broadly continued with Trump's hawkish China policy and actually sounded more bellicose on the question of Taiwan, saying explicitly on multiple occasions that the US would indeed protect Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion, implying a departure from America's long-standing policy of strategic ambiguity. But while Europe shares some of America's concerns about Chinese trade practices and the CCP's authoritarian tendencies, European countries are generally far less hawkish on Taiwan and nowhere near as worried about the supposed Chinese threat to American hegemony. This was made glaringly apparent when, on his way back from a trip to Beijing, Macron warned that the great risk for Europe is that it gets caught up in crises that are not ours, i.e. Taiwan. This caused quite a kerfuffle in Washington when it happened. But what was actually most notable about this episode was that basically zero European politicians came out against Macron. The second related tension is around America's newfound penchant for protectionism. Again, this is a bipartisan issue, and it's been motivated by America's anxieties about Chinese dominance in certain supply chains. This is why Biden kept almost all of Trump's tariffs and actually increased tariffs on certain items that he deemed to be strategically significant, as well as introducing massive subsidies for American manufacturers via the...
Have you noticed how many Chinese electric cars there are on the road now? You ever noticed them?
No.
Not really, no.
Over here, I'm talking about in the UK.
No, I don't think so. I mean,
Do you know what? I never noticed. There's a lot of cars that are popping up that I don't recognise. I used to know like loads of different models of cars. Every car,
Yeah.
every model that you seen, you pretty much knew what it was, didn't you?
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm looking, I'm like, what is that? And as I get close to it, it's like that's a lot of BYD.
right.
And
Oh, it's like Chinese, is it?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
So
I didn't know.
Build Your Dreams, is it? Is that what
I
it
don't
stands
have
for, something like that?
no idea. I don't know
BYD.
much about
There's
it at
an-
all.
There's another one as well, and I saw it the other day, and I was like, "What's that?" And I was trying to get close to it. I couldn't work out what the word said.
Yeah.
But then I seen it advertised on the TV, and I thought that's that car I seen.
Right.
And someone said made in China.
Oh, well.
Apparently,
Okay.
a massive influx of Chinese electric vehicles
Yeah.
coming over.
I've not noticed.
Probably
To be
cheap, aren't
fair,
they?
this where we are now, you're probably not going to get it, based on the amount of cars around here.
Oh no! I bet you will. I bet if you
Do you
went
reckon
to
in
the car,
Hale?
go in the car park, there'd be loads.
Do you reckon?
Yeah. I mean, in between all the Range Rovers,
Yeah,
and
the
you know,
Porsches.
Porsches and Range Rovers also like sandwiched in between each other. Yeah, but it's I've just
I'll keep
noticed.
a lookout for that.
Just notice how many Chinese electric cars
Yeah.
there are. It's a hell of a lot. Yeah.
Well, because they're putting the US putting loads of tariffs now on Chinese import. and
Yeah, I've
things like
seen that. Yeah,
So do you reckon?
Well, I've seen that. I was looking at the stock market yesterday, and it took a bit of a tumble, didn't it?
Apparently so,
in
yeah.
USA and over here.
I don't know
Yeah.
what our relationship with China is in terms of trade. I so it's
We definitely have a trade partnership.
yeah, but is it?
Yeah.
Would we have any sort of tariffs on, or are we just quite?
We'll
cut and dry?
have tariffs. Every country pretty much has tariffs.
Yeah.
Unless we've got free trade
Yeah.
agreement. I think there's in the USA there's the NAFTA. I don't know where that is. I don't know where it's up to now because I don't really do that. I'm not in a business anymore.
Yeah.
But there was North American Free Trade Agreement, which was Mexico, Canada, and the USA. I think it was.
Right, okay.
And they used to trade freely, openly. You know, with many
That's
many
right.
of the
Yeah,
products.
Makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
And now there's a tariff on a lot of products, especially like timber. I think was one of them he's put on.
Yeah.
Electricity, I think, was another one, or I don't know, energy or
And
whatever.
I suppose we had it in Europe with us, didn't we? When we were in the EU, but now
Yeah.
we're out of it. Then
Yeah.
obviously, I think there's tariffs both ways now, isn't there?
is,
So
yeah. Yeah, you just see the duty amounts going up
Duty,
and
yeah,
stuff like that come in. And,
That's right.
But it's one of them where it does create sort of like friction between all nations when this starts happening.
the problem is
So it
one
becomes-
country
becomes a trade
puts
war.
big tariffs on the country, then the other
Yeah.
country just does the same. So it's like
It does, it becomes
to-
a trade war.
To a certain extent, it just cancels itself out, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Because they're just sort of like the other country sort of like does the same.
But when I was in shipping, when you look at a lot of the container boats that come from like the Far East,
Yeah.
they used to pay us to send empty containers back for repositioning. So
Wow.
you would send empty containers because they didn't have enough containers over there to fill them for everything that was coming over, from like Christmas toys to all your Amazon products and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like electronics, everything that was coming out of China. It was everything came out of China. Everything.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, their vessels are coming out. Your Costco and people like that are coming out with vessels that are carrying 1,000 CU containers, and they're just full. Every one of them's full. And then when they're going back, most of them are empty.
Send them back empty. I mean,
So it's one way.
Must,
It's all coming
that's
one way.
incredible because normally you say, right, want it sending back full as well, don't you? But I'm guessing
Well, that's
if
what
they're
you
not
do.
importing
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
then
Yeah, they're probably not importing. They're nowhere near what they used to do. But
yeah.
I don't know what the volume. Like I say, I'm not in that business, so I don't know what the volumes are. But I know they used to be very, very big, coming one way.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Inflation Reduction Act.
The other thing I was going to say, what if the EU wanted to invade Britain?
I was thinking, how does this involve us?
Yeah.
You'd assume that the US would help us.
Oh, I think so. I think.
But I also think
the
they could
US
go-
would definitely come to the table and be.
I feel like, well, if we got took over, I think it'd be because we're only a small country, but we've got a lot. Like we are quite a powerful country in that, and especially with everything all the connections we have.
Yeah, and we are an island, so
Yeah, it's not easy.
good luck with that one.
Yeah, exactly.
all we have to do is play something at football.
Yeah.
Or the match
over.
on it. Oh, we don't know about that.
We'll
No, I mean,
find
the
out for-
fans, a bit of fans.
Oh, the fans.
We'll have an army in itself in that.
Yeah.
This hasn't gone down well with Europe, not just because Trump's tariffs and the Inflation Reduction Act directly affect European companies, but also because, more generally, Europe is more anxious about the global turn to protectionism than the US is. Unlike the US, Europe lacks a domestic energy supply, a wealthy consumer base to buy its products, or the fiscal space to afford expensive protectionist measures like the Inflation Reduction Act, which is why they're generally keener on a more open global trade environment. The third point of tension is the Middle East. Now, there's always been an uncomfortable transatlantic asymmetry over the Middle East, because America just has more influence in the region. But Europe is also more affected by its negative externalities, i.e., when the region is destabilized, it's Europe that's affected by the subsequent uptick in migration and often terrorism. The tension has become all the more apparent with Israel, with Europe generally pushing harder for de-escalation than the US has, and being more critical of Israel's violations of international law. And transatlantic tensions over the Middle East look likely to increase in Trump's second term, given that Trump will probably pursue a relatively hardline Iran policy. And last month, the Wall Street Journal even reported that Trump is considering a direct, preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities once he takes office. This is unlikely to go down well in Europe, which has always wanted the US to take a more conciliatory approach to Iran. both because it worries about the geopolitical fallout and because if sanctions were lifted, Iran could be an alternative oil and gas supplier for Europe. All in all, while no one can predict the future, it's at least true that there are both short and long-term points of tension for the transatlantic relationship, which will probably only get worse over the next 4 years, potentially presaging a more permanent split, something that could lead to some interesting power struggles. The question, though, is who'd come out on top? Who would be left as the most influential person? That's what we're trying to find out with our official most influential person list, which we need your help with. So, if you want to help us decide on who the most influential person in the entire world is, then you can click the link in the description to cast your own ballot for your personal top 10, helping to shape the overall ranking. And your vote is super important, but voting closes on January 15th. So do your democratic duty and cast your ballot for the world's most influential person. Also, if you're wondering why we're doing this, it's for the next issue of our magazine, Too Long. That's because our next issue will contain the...
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, it's that's interesting. It's a good question. Who's the most influential person in the world?
Yeah.
You'd assume right now it's probably Donald Trump.
I think so.
But then in 5 years,
Elon Musk.
Where's Elon Musk? Yeah, exactly. Because he's getting his hands in a lot of elections and things like in Germany and in France and things like that. Where's that going to end up?
I think you're definitely going to see trade shift and power shift. So like, especially when it affects China. Yeah. China's like hold a lot of the cards with what's going on around the world, and they're very, although they're very noisy, they're very low key at the same time. You know, they've got a lot of power, but they never really, you don't hear from them.
No,
if you know what I mean.
Don't tend to flex the muscles that much, really, do they?
They're not a dog that barks very loud, are they?
No.
I think it's
which can be a worrying thing.
Yeah,
because you go like, why are you so quiet? What are you planning, really?
And when you see some of these mega cities that they're building and stuff, I mean, I've been to China. It's absolutely, it's a zoo. You can't move anyway. It's the most busiest place I've ever been. Well, Delhi and Mumbai was a close number 2.
Yeah.
But China was just so super busy. You just didn't go anywhere. Everywhere you went was packed.
Well, it's weird because their economy hasn't been doing well for the past 5-10 years, has it?
But they're like an internal economy, aren't they? I mean, a lot of their economies are like a lot. They've probably got a lot of overseas. Excuse me, all the electronics and everything else, toys.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
like
value-wise.
you name it, what they manufacture, they send them out. It's global.
It just goes absolutely everywhere, absolutely completely. But
then you look at the domestic products, what they've got as well. The domestic demand is huge because there's a billion people there, isn't there?
That's it. There's a lot of people there, isn't there? But I mean, people like the States won't be slow in being well up to date with where they're up to and what China are doing and stuff like that. I know they could be quiet, but they'll be all over what they're getting up to, and even on the quiet sort of thing.
Well, you think about most influential now. It kind of everything right now hangs on what Trump does with Ukraine, Greenland, and Canada. I'd say, and then what Europe does to react to all this.
He just got voted in Canada's prime minister.
No,
is that what you call him over there, prime minister?
I believe so.
I don't
think they have a president.
Do you know who got voted in was he's never been elected by anyone, but he's not been voted in. He's become the new leader of the party that's in charge. So Trudeau's jacked in.
That's right. Yeah.
Vote with no confidence. Well, I can't remember what happened there. He's gone anyway. That Carney, the guy that used to be the head of the Bank of England.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's him.
Oh, wow.
I always knew he was Canadian.
Right.
Because I always thought, we've got a Canadian guy.
That's right. He was, wasn't he? Yeah.
I always thought we've got a Canadian guy who's the head of the Bank of England. And he was there for years.
Yeah, you're right.
But he's not lived in Canada for 10 years.
Right.
And he's he's the prime minister.
Is it kind of he's gone, I'll step up if need be, and they'll go, it might be an interim, but
I just saw it yesterday.
Yeah.
I thought that's interesting.
But Canada's a very interesting part of all this now because it's such a massive country. It's a big piece of land if America can acquire that.
Absolutely. There's a lot of resources there as well.
God, yeah. Timber, my God.
But it's I haven't had time. There's been too much sport on TV to have a time to sit down and read all about the news. Sort of thing. So it's
not a bad place to be in.
The news just took a back seat.
Yeah.
Well, I'm focusing on sport at the moment.
It's not a bad thing sometimes.
So it takes me about an hour and a half just to study the form for one race.
Yeah.
Let alone I've got 5 in a day now. So it's
So I've got my bet builder, Cheltenham, then geopolitics,
and European Cup tonight.
Then we'll see what Liverpool get up to.
Yeah. So it's there you go. Anyway, but is it time for Europe? So we can't. I don't think. I can't speak for Europe. I can only speak for Britain. So we can't afford. We can't afford.
I think we still need America without security reasons and everything.
I think the whole globe.
Just the whole lot.
They're our closest ally now. You'd say probably no.
I think the globe needs them, man. I think Europe needs them more than anybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because like I say, we're sat right on the doorstep of the Middle East. We're sat right on the doorstep of Russia.
It's times like that's where you need America. Yeah. Without a doubt, backing you up.
100%.
Yeah.
There you go. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let us know what you think in the comments. Stay nice. Stay
stay nice.
Don't get all angry. And
It's just an opinion.
Correct. Yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe as well. And we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.